Mr. Borelli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Will you yield, Mr. Abernathy?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Sponsor yields.
Mr. Abernathy, in line 3, you sort of define emergency where an imminent imperilment to the public health and safety exists. Can you give examples of what that would mean?
Mr. Speaker, I think I've already given some examples. One would be a sewage spill. Another one would be what's unfortunately becoming more common these days would be an oil spill. That's particularly important because you may have a municipality that does not have an emergency plan, as has been referred to by the previous speaker, and where there is no plan in place to notify the neighboring county. So you might have a situation where there's an oil spill, where it's affecting your own local municipalities at first, but now is starting to go down and to affect the neighboring municipalities. So this bill, frankly, amended at the suggestion of the previous speaker last year, would require that the health commissioner notify the neighboring health commissioner as well, so they would be aware of something they might not already know about.
So beyond environmental and beyond disease-related or health-related issues, can't this be defined to mean, large fires, perhaps a machete-wielding person walking around town? Those are certainly threats to public safety, no?
I would suggest that what we're trying to do here is stay within the confines of the normal jurisdiction of the health commissioner. If the health commissioner deems it significant enough to mobilize the county's response.
Well, it doesn't say that.
But we're using the terminology that's normally used within the health field. We're not trying to redefine the definitions of what the health commissioner does. All we're trying to do here is require the health commissioner to notify people.
So is a person with a machete walking down Main Street, is that an imminent threat to public safety?
I would leave that to the health commissioner to make that determination, whether the health commissioner is going to get involved in that and whether the locals should be called. In my county, that would be the response of the police department. Okay. I can't tell you what the response in other counties would be.
But your bill doesn't differentiate between responses that would be responded to by a police department and a health department. This is simply saying that if there's a threat to eminent public safety, the health commissioner is the one who has to notify elected officials.
No, if you read the bill, it says, upon the occurrence of an emergency where an imminent imperilment to the public health and safety exists, in addition to those individuals he or she would have otherwise notified. So we're just adding on to the existing system that the health commissioner would have.
Right, but
if in that situation the health commissioner would notify no one,
yeah,
then this would not go into effect.
I'm not even on who they're going to notify later. I'm talking about how does the health commissioner get to define an incident?
Well, but this, by looking at that language, it clarifies the answer to your question, because what you've got here is, in a situation where the health commissioner would not get involved and would not notify someone, this doesn't go into effect.
I don't think it says that. I think it says imminent imperilment of public safety. So in my definition or my interpretation of this, if there's an axe-wielding person in Queens somewhere, the precinct captain or whoever from the police department now has to notify the health commissioner so that the health commissioner can then meet the terms of this law.
I would respectfully suggest that that's a strained interpretation. We're basically just saying, in addition to those that the health commissioner would otherwise have notified. If the health commissioner would not have gotten involved in that situation and would not have notified anyone, this doesn't go into effect. This is basically saying that where the health commissioner is going to step in, because in his or her judgment, there is a threat to health and safety that he or she has to be involved with, then that commissioner would have to notify 3 categories of people. One of them is the executive officer of the local municipality affected, and that seems to be common sense. The second one is a member of the local legislative body in the county, and the third one is the neighboring health commissioner if it affects that other county.
So, but it doesn't say if it affects the other county. Actually, no, you're right, it does. I rescind that. So
If I may also, let me just, the reason we put in the legislative body of the county is there are many counties that are run by a board of supervisors.
Sure.
And so they need to know what is happening within their county.
Sure.
They don't necessarily have a county executive or a large entity. It's run by a board of supervisors, five people or seven people.
Let's go back to the examples you gave, though, sort of the environmental issues. So if there's a sewer backup and it sort of affects, 20 houses in a neighborhood or a town or whatever, would that sort of trigger a public health problem if sewage is now leaking into people's houses?
Well, I can't make that judgment on behalf of the local health commissioner, but if the local health commissioner thought that was an imperilment to the health and safety of that neighborhood, then the health commissioner would have to, according to this, notify the mayor or the city manager of that neighborhood so that they could bring out the police department, they could bring out whatever people they needed to bring out. See, because otherwise you end up with a situation.
But is that not happening now?
Well, frankly, it didn't happen in the situations that I'm talking about.
So in a city of New York with 8 million people, and with sewage issues, with environmental issues, with public health issues happening, in the matter of, or in the amount of dozens of times per day, does the mayor of New York City now get bothered 15, 20 times a day with occurrences that have ordinarily been handled by the bureaucratic emergency management system we've already put in place?
I would suggest that this places a responsibility on the chief health official for the city of New York to make sure that a system is in place to notify the appropriate people. In the city of New York, you have a little bit of a different situation than you have, it says here, legislative body of the county.
Yeah.
I would suggest that that doesn't apply to the legislative body of a city.
Can we make an amendment to the bill then? Can we make an amendment to this bill? Will you change it going forward so that the mayor of New York City is not bothered on a, dozens of times per day basis with incidents that happen in police precincts, in borough DEP?
But I respectfully suggest you're reading this too literally. As I said before, the health commissioner can set up a process. In the city of New York, there is somebody who would be notified by the health authorities in the mayor's office. That clearly would suffice. But when you're dealing with a village or a town, usually there's no one other than the mayor or one of the local legislative leaders who is assigned to be, let's say, the liaison to the health department. And that's the person who's actually operationally in charge.
Okay. Thank you very much. On the bill?
On the bill, Mr. Borelli.
I think the sponsor of this bill has good intentions. However, I simply think it does not adapt well to the model that's created by the city of New York. In the city, we have a wonderful emergency management system that responds quickly and efficiently. Commissioner Esposito of the Office of Emergency Management is outstanding and has chosen to notify elected officials when he deems it necessary. I think it's funny to note that former fire commissioners, former police commissioners have gone on to educate the rest of the world on how to respond to emergencies. Never once was there a time when they said, we need elected officials to show up with their cute windbreakers with their name on it and take pictures. I think it's a well-intentioned bill. I simply think it takes puts an additional mandate on municipalities, and I think it puts an extremely large mandate on the city of New York, which responds to dozens of these incidents per day. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.